This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 273 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Russell Nohelty, and we're going to be talking all about how to create a world-class Substack. Russell also talks about the flywheel concept, which is something that I feel like I've experienced over this year. The fact that it's a really hard grind to kind of get your wheel going, your business wheel going. And then once it is going, the flywheel then moves a lot quicker and easier. And it's a lot easier then to keep going and keep building. So I hope that you all enjoy this episode deeply. In personal news and updates then, I don't really know where the last week has gone. I was sick. I got sick for a few days and I've been running around doing Christmassy things. I forgot, I think, that December is always pretty tough month, a bit like the summer holidays. If I don't have childcare sorted out, I do obviously because my kid is at school, but there is so much going on that I kind of forgot that this month is a difficult month. I tend to do that every year. Nonetheless, I have been working on the outline. I have got quite a lot more detail, but I haven't quite committed to what this new story is. I'm pretty sure I know now, but I actually have to take from all of my notes and what's in my head and then actually drill that down into scenes. So I'm hoping that's what I'm going to spend the next little week doing, is actually getting the outline finally into Plotter and into some semblance of a story structure so that come January I can sort of hit the ground running. That said, tomorrow I am off to London to meet a friend for a Christmas dinner, and then I am going to not gonna lie, I'm gonna head to Waterstones and then probably Forbidden Planet and then probably Goldsborough. I'm probably gonna have to schlep a load of books back. Also, and this is totally random and nobody is gonna care, but I'm gonna tell you anyway because it's my podcast. Some of you may have noticed who follow me on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, that I've been growing my hair for about a year and a half now, and I haven't had a haircut, so I haven't undercut, and so I have that shaved, but I have not had a cut of all the rest of the hair since June the 17th, 2023, and I have just booked in for a haircut before Christmas. Now, this isn't going to be the way that I want my hair to look, but it's going to cut it into a shape so that it can grow down, and I have to say, I don't think I've ever been more excited and terrified of a haircut, but I'm going to a curl specialist in London, so I have to make a trip into London just to have my hair cut, but I'm super excited as I have never been to a curl specialist. I'm really hoping that they're going to be able to cut my hair in a way that really works, because if you go to a salon where they don't really understand curly hair, they end up wet cutting it and it's just a bit of a nightmare. Anyway, so that's my personal little bit of excitement. So anyway, I am definitely winding down now. I am pretty tired, I have to say. I'm feeling pretty reflective. I had some quite tough coaching sessions in the last couple of weeks, really pushing me and testing me to think about what the difference is between influence and legacy. The way that I'm defining that, it would be legacy is the things that you create. So words, books. Influence is, everything else that comes out of that, how far they reach. So for example, and I'm going to, just because it's a really easy example, she who must not be named wrote a series of books. Those are her legacy, but the influence would be things like Harry Potter World. Damn it, I said the name. The theme parks, for example. She who must not be named isn't touching those, not necessarily, having to spend her physical time working on them, but that is the influence of her legacy. And during this phase of growth, I have to let go of more, and I have let go of an awful lot this year, but I am finding that because we're still in this relentless growth, I'm still spending too much time doing business and not actually enough time on the creativity, even though I have a team now, even though, all of these different things. So it's basically a lesson for me, I think, to let go of more, trust more, not need to control more. And so I've been very, very reflective over the last few couple of weeks and being tested, but also trying to look at what next year looks like, what it feels like. And speaking of next year, the next 2 episodes are obviously on Wednesdays, but this is one of those wonderful years where Wednesday, Christmas and New Year's Eve fall on a Wednesday. So rather than give you the normal interview episodes, I've got 2 special episodes coming for you that are a little bit of fun. One of them is very festive, well, partly festive, and the other one is a community-based episode. So I really hope that you enjoy them. This will be the last official episode that you get from me until January, but I hope that you enjoy what is coming. No matter what holiday you celebrate or don't celebrate, I hope that you have a wonderful end of December, wonderful end of your year if this is your calendar year, and I hope that your days are filled with joy and love and maybe some goodies and some great food and some beautiful words and time to create. All right, I think that's probably enough from me. No, I should talk about my launch. Oh yeah, that thing that's happened. So we're not even a week out. We are 6 days out from launch. I launched the last book, House of Crimson Curses, last week. And holy shit, it is without doubt the best launch I have ever had, which I find wild. Wild that the last book in a series did the best. I mean, obviously over time, it will even out. And, you know, I mean, the first book has still earned more than the last book because it's only 6 days old. But broadly speaking, in terms of launch, best launch ever. I am probably 2 days away from beating my highest month on Amazon ever. And today is the 11th. So I suspect by the 13th, this month will be the highest earnings month ever, which is just wild to me. I can't really believe it. Makes me a little bit nervous, if I'm honest. I think this will probably be the highest earnings month across the board, which is incredible. What a way to end the year. And I think this has also been why I've been super reflective, because we are on the 11th today, Wednesday, the 11th of December. And 3 days ago was my 1-year anniversary of having gone viral. And when I look back, I can't quite get my head around what has happened this year. You know, the company will have 10x'd essentially. And that just seems wild to me that this month I have the potential to, I mean, I might not do it, but potentially earn what I earned in the entire of last year on Amazon just in this month. And that is just bonkers to me. I can't get my head around how it happened. I mean, I'm just so grateful as well, but I definitely am still reeling. And one of the conversations I was having with my coach was this, what was the word she used? Not fleeting, but it still feels ephemeral, like very temporary, like it doesn't feel grounded. It doesn't feel like this is my reality. And some of that, I guess, is scarcity mindset. What if it goes away? You know, I'm still feeling that because a year is not very long to be confident that it's going to stay around. And we all know that this industry changes constantly and we're all having to pivot all of the time. And so I have to go away and do maybe some journaling or be reflective on trusting myself, trusting my creativity, trusting my business acumen, that even if things do go downhill, I will be able to pivot and bring them back up again in whatever form that looks like. But, you know, I feel like it's really important for me to both share the successes that I'm seeing, but also the honesty behind it and the psychology behind what is happening in my head. Like, I'm trying to practice gratitude every day at the moment because that really helps me to stay positive and be in a really good frame of mind. But also, it's clear that I still have some work to do on scarcity and fear. And so, yeah, like I'm definitely super reflective this time of year. Okay, all right, I'm going to move on because I've already given you my update and we didn't actually do comments on the last episode. So a comment from Matt. This is so inspiring hearing you talk about your coming goals, having followed you from Keepers. That was my first book for those that don't know, to hear. Matt also said that was a really interesting point to note about the distinctions within dark academia, more literary or more spicy. I guess it all comes back to genres within genres within genres and to know which one you're writing. I completely agree. What was lovely is that Sasha, who was the guest, said 100%. I was also really fascinated to hear Sasha's take on the genre. That rivalry is central. I'm drawn more to the idea of survival within the mysterious academy setting than necessarily rivalry, possibly because of my own university experience. But the two concepts may also be two sides of one coin, survival of the smartest. Amazing. Okay. The rebel of the week this week is Karla. Karla says, both of my grandmothers were rebels, and I'm pretty sure I get most of my rebellious streak from them. My mum's mum, the Irish Nana, though our family had been in the US for 7 generations, was a feminist. She was a good-looking woman, and after she married, was approached to be a sheet music model. Back then, without electronic entertainment, people sang around the piano, and sheet music companies used pretty girls to sell their products. I bet they did. My Nana was on the cover of some sheet music, much to my grandfather's dismay. She always told us kids to keep a pin fund because you never know what might happen. Her story actually starts with her parents. In Boston in the 1800s, the Irish weren't welcomed. My great-grandfather came from a Boston Brahmin family, I hope I've said that right, with societal cachet and descended from a founder of the American Presbyterian Church. When he insisted on marrying an Irish Catholic girl, his family disowned him, but didn't disinherit him. He agreed the kids would be raised Catholic and was married by a priest. When my Nana was born, she was supposed to be baptised Elida Mary, but the priest decided it sounded too Protestant and baptised her Mary Elizabeth instead. My great-grandmother was livid, but her husband accepted it. Going by Elida instead of Mary was an act of rebellion in itself. My grandma used to tell us, Lincoln freed the slaves but forgot about the women, and if pregnancy alternated between men and women, there had never have been a family larger than 3. She marched the streets of Boston demanding the vote for women, making it clear she fought. Oh my goodness me. Making it clear she fought for future generations of women so that our family would have a voice. When my grandfather died, my Nana, still relatively young, received many marriage proposals but turned them all down. She managed to run her household, raise the last 2 of her 8 kids, holy moly, and support adult children who moved back in with her. Her short-lived modelling career was an example of her independence. Her husband thought the pin money she told us to keep for ourselves was unnecessary, but she reminded him it wasn't about him, it was for her. Recently, while researching the American transcendental movement for a book, I recognised many phrases my Nana used to say, reflecting gaps in equality between men and women. I realised she was born towards the tail end of that movement in Boston, a hub for it, and it hit me. Nana was a transcendentalist. That is a hard word to say. At least now I know where my rebellious nature comes from. I also have Italian Nana stories to share someday, but for now this one was about my Irish Nana and it felt important. And Karla has also shared a picture of her Nana, so I will make sure that we're allowed to share that and that can go in the show notes. If you would like to be a Rebel of the Week, please do send in your story. We are always on the cusp of not having any left, so please do send them in, especially if you have a Christmassy one, or no, I'm kidding, it can be any kind of rebellion, something big, something small, or something in between. In fact, I actually have a cat rebellion over Christmas. Maybe I'll share that one day. You can email your Rebel story to Becca over on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. Welcome and a huge thank you to Kat Vroman, and a big thank you to all of my existing patrons. We have had some huge changes over the last month. I am stopping the masterclasses temporarily. There aren't going to be any masterclasses next year. I need a break from them. So I have currently removed that Patreon tier. So you cannot sign up at that tier. You can only sign up at the $2 and $5 level. And we are going to have some changes to the Poison and Prose. We still have our Slack community where we are talking and chatting every day, but we are going to have a author kind of power hour roundtable every month where we get together, ask each other questions, help support each other, chat. I will help answer things, a bit like an office hour, I guess. So you can find out more about that in Patreon if you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes as well as bonus content like our roundtable sessions. And you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. This week's episode is sponsored by Fictionary Software and Fictionary Live. Rather than me tell you all about why I love Fictionary, I'm going to let Amy tell you all about why she loves them. But before I do that, don't forget you can get 25% off Storyteller and Storyteller Premium and Certification with the code all caps REBEL25. That is the numerical number 25, REBEL25.
Hello, I'm Amy Sund, editor at Red Leaf Word Services. Now that your first draft is done, it's time to focus on the big picture elements of your story. Here's where Fictionary can help. Fictionary can track over 30 structural elements per scene. You heard that right. Per scene. It presents these elements in graphs, charts, and color-coded diagrams. It's a fantastic way to pick out weak spots or holes in your story's structure, especially for visual learners. Fictionary is one of the tools I most often suggest to my manuscript evaluation clients. I've used it in my own writing for refining scenes, smoothing out transitions, and seeing where I need to focus my attention. A 14-day free trial is available for new users, perfect for plugging in a short story to see what comes up. Founder Christina Stanley has built a thriving community around the software that is supportive, social, and educational. Come join us and see how Fictionary can help you craft a novel your readers will love.
Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. Today I'm joined by Russell Nohelty. Russell is a USA Today best-selling fantasy author who has written dozens of novels and graphic novels, including The Godverse Chronicles, The Obsidian Spindle Saga, and Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter. He is the publisher of Wannabe Press, co-host of the Kickstart Your Book Sales and Six-Figure Author Experiment podcasts, and co-founder of the Writer MBA Conference and the Future of Publishing Mastermind. He also co-created the Author Eco Archetype System to help authors embrace their natural tendencies to find success. You can find most of his writing at theauthorstack.com. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife and dogs. Hello and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Wow, it sounded so wonderful. That's the best I've ever think my bio has ever sounded from anyone.
It's the British accent. It's definitely the British accent. We play great villains and do great voiceover. That's it. That's all we've got. And back in the day, we had a really cool, monarchy. But anyway, I won't get into that. Right. So what dogs do you have just before we dive in? I am an animal lover.
I have a little long-haired dachshund and a corgi husky mix. So all the dogs with stumpy little legs. We are a stumpy little leg dog family.
That's so cute. That's so cute. So my wife is a huge dog lover, but we have cats because I work at home and she doesn't. And I don't want to be responsible for having to walk the dog in the middle of the day, basically. So I was like, when you retire, honey, you can get dogs.
Awesome. I love it.
Okay. Well, we said this before we came on air, but this is a very strange occurrence when two people have been in this industry for so long. And this is actually the first time we're meeting. So I'm really thrilled to be able to put a face to a name. But for those who maybe haven't followed your career, could you tell everyone a little bit about you? What was your journey? How did you get to this place that you are right now?
I asked that question so many times. So I was born in Jersey. We moved to Virginia at a very young age, Northern Virginia. And then I went to school in Maryland because I wanted to do film. I got into NYU and my dad was like, you can get 1 year of NYU or I'll pay for your whole University of Maryland college. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go to University of Maryland because yeah, so I went there and I studied broadcast journalism and sociology, which everyone said is phony majors. And I used them both every single day of my life, multiple times a day. Sociology is I use it for ads all the time and broadcast journalism for all of these kinds of things. Then after college, I started working in film and TV. I directed a movie. I directed some TV. I directed a whole bunch of stuff in DC. But like DC is a very documentary friendly town, and I wanted to do more narrative. So 2008, my wife and I moved to LA, and I started taking meetings. I got a manager, but like man, things have not been very good in LA for like since I'm for the last like 15 years, it's like never been really good. And it probably wasn't good for like a good decade before then, but like, nothing really happened. I was recovering from an accident, so I couldn't really do my own thing. And I'm very much like, I'm just going to do it then. But like, film is a very hard business to just like do it because it's expensive and it requires a whole lot of people to do. So like, I'm not an actor, so it was hard. I wasn't going to be in front of the camera. So I started doing things that required less and less people. First, it was comics, which was great because it was me and an artist. But even then, I would write the script and then I would send it off to the artist and I'd wait. So between then, I started writing books and I was like, oh, I can do a lot more books than I can comics. Like you can literally make 10 books for the same price as one graphic novel. And so I started doing that more and more and more and more and more. But and during that time, I started teaching. But I always kind of was teaching because I never really believed that you could make a living as an author online and doing online sales until my friend Amanda sat me down at a conference and was like, I make $100,000 a month. You have to stop saying that. And I was like, I mean, I believe you, but like, what? And she showed me her dashboard. She was writing Mafia Romance. So like it's clearly like this was 10 years ago, writing Mafia Romance. So like she was making more than that actually. That was like a low month. I suddenly was like, oh my God, you can like actually just do writing and like be a writer and like make money as a writer. So like I like went all in. I wrote like 24 books in 24 months. I just kept like hammering books and books and books and books. And I did a bunch of conventions. And then Monica like bought the rights to my nonfiction because I was like, I'm done with nonfiction. And then we came up with our Kickstarter book, and I was back in nonfiction. And then like all of this other stuff started to snowball, and until we got to today.
Yeah, no, I love it. And thank you for all the Kickstarter like info and stuff out there between you and Joe and Anthea. I have had a couple of really successful Kickstarters. My second one is finishing on Monday, so
Awesome.
yeah, thank you for putting all the knowledge out in the community. It has certainly helped me.
Yay.
So, okay, well, we're not here to talk about Kickstarter, although we could. We are here to talk about Substack, which is a bit of a mystery to a lot of people, including me, if I'm perfectly honest. And I always like to know all of the up and coming things. I mean, it's been around for a while, but I think your book as well is kind of the first of its type. I don't think I've seen anything out there. So can you demystify it all for me and for listeners, for those who don't really understand what it is? What is Substack? How does it work? And why on earth should we care?
Okay, so Substack is a subscription platform. So Monica and I, my business partner Monica Leonel and I, talk about direct sales across 5 metrics. 1 is subscriptions, 2 is crowdfunding, 3 is conventions and conferences, 4 is website sales, comma web store. So like your Shopify store, and then landing pages on your website for special offers and such. And so subscriptions is one of the direct sales, and page and Substack falls in the subscription category in so much as like Patreon and Ream and all of the other like subscriptions you might be doing on your own website or anything. What differentiates it is the other options when it comes to subscriptions are not very good at organic search. I mean, I think I'm being very generous to say they're not good at organic search. They're often hostile to organic search, or they're best net neutral to organic search. So if you love like organic growth, like I do, then Substack is great because it is built as an organic growth engine which makes it very different than any of the other options. And it also has a centralized uh, uh, social media platform called Notes, which even makes that area organic. Like it has organic growth to your publication because at the top of every note, it gives you a place to subscribe to the publication. So if you like a publication, you can just subscribe to it right then and there. And much like any other ESP, email service provider, you get the emails, you get the data, like you go through Stripe, so you can move it off platform. So in many ways, it's the best of both worlds. It's not perfect, but like those are, I think, the things that attracted me most to the platform. That is specifically the organic growth and that growth transferred to money. So here's the thing: I've tried like every subscription platform ever, and they all like don't turn into money. They all like die at the vine because there's not that organic group of people who are all already buying, like mingling with each other. And that's where I think Substack really shines. I have tried Patreon and about every other platform that's come out and literally could not. I even built my own app. I couldn't get more than like 100 people to like buy the app that I spent thousands of dollars making. Meanwhile, like something works in Substack that makes people then buy a subscription. And I don't know exactly what that nugget is, but I do know that for me, it was the one subscription platform that took off when nothing else would.
Are you a user of Substack as well as a like creator on that? Okay, so let me ask you this then. Does it work in the way that TikTok works, in that it shows you things that are of interest? It's an interest-based search. Like, because if that's the case, then I think that's like the FYP on TikTok works because it curates things that it thinks that you will like. So that might be why Substack works, whereas on Patreon, you can't really search for anything. It's like you have you drive all the traffic there. I think that's one of the things that works so well about Kickstarter is that you drive traffic there, but they also drive traffic to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the magical things about Kickstarter. So that makes a lot of sense to me why that platform works so well. My question is, it sounds very much like a, in air quotes, blog. And
sure.
We know that blogs were very popular back in like 2012, 2011, that kind of era, maybe even slightly earlier than that. So why is it slightly different? Why is Substack suddenly working? Is it essentially a blog? Why do you think they're coming back, this kind of form of communication? And I suppose the other question is, why not like just transfer it all to your newsletter, like so that I suppose if you're getting the emails, but yeah, I suppose talk to me a little bit more in depth about that kind of aspect.
Do you remember web rings?
Oh, no.
Okay, so web rings were back, I don't know, 2000 and years ago. I'm not going to date myself to try to remember when, but like the idea of a web ring was you and a bunch of other blogs all recommend each other. And at the bottom of the...
Yes, okay.
So like Substack is the only thing that really ever worked for me on blog growth was like web rings and guest posting and people like recommending you. And so like, yes, Substack is basically all of the best things that people did for growth in the early 2000s, but like on steroids and funded by VC. So like why I don't actually think it ever...
Voice
venture
chat?
capital.
Okay,
capital.
sorry.
Like they put like $90 million into this platform, and
wow.
It's a lot. They put a lot of funds behind this to like get this engine growing. But the idea, I think, is that like it's the same as blogs. It's like all of the elements at blogs. Like if you were like, hey, I remember that from web rings. And I remember that from like coding my own PayPal button. I don't know if anyone else has had to code their own PayPal button to get donations, but like, oh, this is just guest posting. Like, it's like you hey, like one of the best things you can do about Substack is cross post. So I can take your article if it's free and just like without like cross post it to my publication and it shows up as my in my publication, but all of the traffic and everything and all of the links go to get attributed to your publication. So all of and then you can have like actual guest posting where you actually just write something for some other publication. Like all of it is just like the way blogs should have been. It's like, what if somebody who loved blogs went through the entire social media era, learned everything about social media that was like working, and then was like, what I really want is like blogs again. And like that's kind of Substack. So I I think it went away because we didn't know what we were missing.
Mm.
And now, after like 15 years of social media becoming ever and ever shallower, like there is a growing need for like things that are deeper, and there's not really much deeper than like a blog. Like mommy bloggers are a huge part of like Substack, and they were also a huge part of like blogs. The other thing about Substack is they're kind of format agnostic. So they are very good at audio. They are very good at video, and they are very good at text. And I have courses behind my paywall on my publication. I have audio. We have a podcast called the Six Figure Author Experiment that's hosted on both video and audio, or hosted on Substack. So, and they are making big pushes into specifically video, but audio and video. So I don't think you're wrong. I think it is like just like what if blogs plus social media? But like that's all I ever wanted from the internet anyway.
Okay, in terms of who Substack is relevant for, in terms of like winding it into your author business system, is it really only for nonfiction authors, or are there fiction authors making it work for them?
I I mean it's hard because making it in fiction is hard across any. The thing that makes it hardest on Substack is they only let you have two tiers. Whereas like people that make fiction work on like Patreon, they have like 10 or 15 tiers. Like they have all sorts of other things they can do where there's only two tiers in fiction. So I would say if you were using it for fiction, you would probably want to, Monica calls it going wide with your like subscription, whereas you would have maybe that one tripwire over on Substack, but then be like, hey, do you want more content? Like you could go to Patreon to get all of this extra stuff as well, or Ream or wherever you're hosting your other publication. That is the hardest part, I think, about Substack is their dogged insistence that you only get one subscription tier. Yeah. So it definitely works more for nonfiction, but I think it's also because nonfiction has more formats that they work in, and also because they just have ways to draw people off platform easier. Like you could sell $1,000 course, like Ash Amber, Sarah Faye, like a bunch of people, like they're selling $500 or $1,000 experiences with like their Substack. And like it's just a lot harder to do. Monica calls it the novelist dilemma because no matter how many books you have, you can pretty much only sell them for between $5 and $10 a piece digitally.
Not on Kickstarter.
That is correct. That is true.
Making a butt ton of money over there.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that like I think like sets Kickstarter apart, which is why Kickstarter and Patreon so naturally fit together usually because there's a bunch of tiers and like there's a bunch of tiers on Patreon and like the people that pay you $5 might pay you $150, but but if you only let them, you pay them $5, they're only going to ever pay you $5. Um, it easily the most frustrating part of Substack is this. One, they don't have an open API, and two, they only have like this very archaic system for doing tiers.
Okay, so we'll speak mostly then to kind of the non-fiction authors or the fiction authors who are also teaching and wanting, to kind of add a different stream of income into their business. What is like the recommended or like average strategy? Is there like a posting frequency? Is there a preferred type of content? Is there, yeah, what about kind of like the technical ins and outs? Like how often, yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So it's going to sound a lot like blogs, if you remember, for those of us who remember blogs, but like I recommend 5 to 10 pieces of cornerstone content, which is longer, more informed blog content that will like is meaty that can act as your SEO weights for when people find your blog. So usually, how we used to teach it was like 5 to 10 cornerstone content pieces over the first month of your publication. I still think that's cornerstone content being somewhere between 2 and 5,000 words, just to like get your publication off and teach people what you do. That said, the most popular content type on Substack is 800 to 1,500 word posts. The most uh, popular publishing frequency is weekly. There are people that do daily. There are people that do monthly. I think that probably if I were to tell somebody what to do when they came to Substack, it would be do a daily note. That's their social media content is a note. So 1 to 2 daily of those weekly 800 to 1,500 word posts about your topic, and then have some back catalog so people can go into and see what you're about. And I think the other thing I would say is just like get your branding right. Or like, don't worry. If you don't know what you want to do, then don't worry about branding at all. Just like be chaos. And then eventually, as you figure out your chaos, like you'll figure out what like kind of things you like resonate and like a theme. And then you can get your brand right. Most people on Substack, the great thing about people on Substack is most people that matriculate to Substack are over other social media platforms. They've tried other things and they're just like sick of all of that's and so they're kind of like ready for new and weird things, which is like to me the best kind of platform to look for because like if you're in the middle of the bell curve, you are probably not listening to my content. Like I'm like very far afield for like and like 8 degrees away from like what the median is. But like Substack is great because like it is chaos. It does kind of remind me as like what if Tumblr worked for like businesses. And I feels like a lot of people are like the grown-up version of their Tumblr selves on Substack.
Oh, I love it. So one of the things that you talk about in your book is how joyful it's been for you. Is it because there's the right community there? Is it just that you're getting to express yourself in a different way? Like, what is it that has, given you all this joy back?
I think it's like people are earnest. Like they just like are they're not cynical generally. Like there's not a bunch of like fighting in like the comments section. Like even in their social media, like there's very little fighting. Like I'm not going to say there's not like a contingent of people that I wish were not on platform who espoused horrible views. But like, in general, when you go on a social media platform, maybe with the exception of Threads sometimes, like you can't go 4 seconds without seeing some fight that's happening. And it's kind of exhausting. The other thing is that there's no ads on the nice thing on the underlying undergirding metric of Substack is that they only make money when like they take 10% of the money you make. So they are only incentivized to like make more money for the people, as opposed to on Facebook where they're incentivized when ads are shown and engagement happens. And there are all these things where like the incentives are misaligned with the people on the platform where they are the product. And I am not saying that Substack is this like paragon of like value either. It's just they are incentivized. They make 10% of every dollar that comes in. So like all they care about is like getting more dollars into the platform, which has its own issues, understandably. So I think that the people, and then finally, I think that the people that are on Substack are people that are just sick of how the internet works. Like they're like it's somewhat like Kickstarter. Like people came to Kickstarter because they were like, I don't like what's on Amazon. Like, I'm not like I'm looking for like a weird thing and like I'm not finding it over here. So like the people that are on Kickstarter are already people who are like several degrees away from the median because they're looking for things that they didn't find over here. And Substack is very similarly like if they are people who have been disillusioned with how social media works, and so they kind of I don't know. The best thing I can say is like Tumblr, but for adults.
Okay. So you've talked a little bit about the different the fact that there is restrictions on tiers. How talk a bit about the monetization element of it. How can authors use it to create a really solid income stream for them? Is it per item published? Is it monthly? You mentioned people were doing courses. Like, so is it holds and hosts courses as well? Like, tell me a little bit about the monetization on there.
Yes, so you get one, it's a month. You can only do two tiers. One is monthly, and then the other is called a founding tier, which is yearly. It's usually considerably more than the regular tier. My Claire, who's my who co-wrote the book with me, she has like a $300 or $350 one that she calls her Diamond Elite tier, where like people get like hand holding and more like access to her. But the monthly one, you get to choose a minimum of $5. And then it can go as high as you want. Hang on. Sorry, I'm still getting over being sick. So it can go as high as you want. I've seen people that have $150 a month. I've had people $150 a year, like absurd ones I would consider absurd. Um, the thing that sets Substack apart is I consider there to be two kinds of subscription models. One is a publication model like Washington Post, where like you pay once, you access all of the stuff on the Washington Post. The other is a membership model where like you're paying for inclusion and perks and Ally or the Boy Scouts or any of those kinds of things. And Patreon more goes towards the membership side, where like you're paying partially for identity and like just being part of the community. Whereas the Substack leans much more heavily to the publication side, where like people are paying to like get your content. So you can paywall any article. So I have over 900 member exclusive posts. Some of those are courses. Some of those are books. I have a lot of almost all of my nonfiction books, including the ones I co-wrote with Monica, are behind paywall for paying members. A lot of my fiction is behind there, like 10 or 20 novels are behind there that for people to read. Archives for my podcast. I had a 200 episode podcast called The Complete Creative. I have script libraries. I have like so much stuff. And I'm not saying you should like do what I do, but like if you I think of it as like these are all of the things you need to know to buy my more popular stuff. Like to be more to like get to the conference, you need to know my create better Facebook ads course, or like you need to read so I created kind of an archive of all of the things that a person would need to know to like get excited about the rest of the things, or to answer the questions that they would have before they can actually make it to being a more successful creator. So There's two questions that you have to make with Substack with your publication with anything that you do. But the main one is, are you going to have a high touch point or low touch point publication? Which is, are you going to be in there like pushing people, like giving one-on-one support, all of those things? High touch point means it probably needs to be more expensive. A low touch point publication is what I do, where it's like, if you make a comment, I will comment back, but like I am not involved in like your lives. So you pay very little. And then that leads to the second question, which is, where in the buying cycle is your subscription? Is it at the beginning? Is it the first thing you want people to buy? Because that's very different than having it be like the last thing that people buy, which is a high touch point publication usually correlates to, this is probably the last or a later. It's like a mastermind stage or something that you want to do. Whereas like a low touch point publication probably corresponds to a low touch point publication because or a first thing in publication because like it's not going to be very expensive. So I still think the best thing that you can do for a publication is to do pledge drives like PBS. And like that's how I get most of my things. So like for how PBS works is they have their content that goes all the time. Most of it is free, some of it is not. And like 4 times a year, they go, hey, did you know we have to pay for this whole studio? Like maybe give us some money now. Maybe it's time. And like for a very small amount of time, 1 to 2 weeks or a month, they're like pushing that membership. And that seems to be, in my experience, the best way to get the most subscribers quickly. And I definitely recommend when you're coming to Substack or any subscription platform that you do it at first, because it's a lot easier to like spend the time and energy when 100 people are paying you than when 2 people are paying you.
That I have so many thoughts, and one has just slipped out of my brain. So I'm going to talk about the other one before I come back to that one. Hopefully I'll remember. One of the really interesting things that you kind of made me think about, words are hard, is that when you've been in this industry a long time and you have been a teacher, you build up a lot of assets. And it's so interesting that you were talking about how many assets you kind of put into there. Because I was literally having a conversation with my ops manager today about the fact that we needed to update my asset spreadsheet because I have so much stuff and none of it's being used anymore because I basically did a 180 and in January last year, 98% of my income was nonfiction. July this year, it was less than 1%. So it's all fiction now. Yeah. Like I exploded. It was one of those freak things that happened and now it's all fiction. So but what that means is I have a lot of nonfiction stuff, courses that I've done and slide decks and all kinds of things, and I'm just doing nothing with it. And I'm not saying Substack is right for me, but it was serendipitous timing that you're talking about this, and I was literally talking about the fact that I have all these assets that I'm not doing anything with anymore. I shut down my teaching platforms and everything. So you mentioned that you did put a lot of stuff. You got 1,000 pieces or, whatever it was behind the paywall. So do you, in terms of your strategy, do you also give away stuff for free? Is that one of the methods to like get people in? Because obviously there's a paywall stopping people seeing most of the content. So how do you actually recruit people in when there is like such a hard paywall and people can't see anything?
Yeah, so most of my rule is, if it goes in a book, it goes behind a paywall. So like I write a lot of our nonfiction books like in public. I did that with our Substack book. I did that with our the capitalism book I have coming out next year. And then like the minute that like it was all free, and then like the minute that it went in a book, it went behind a paywall. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, you can't get it anywhere now. And that's been kind of my strategy to like, every week I'll put out one very good post. That's usually way too long, 2,000 to 5,000 words. And then I might put other stuff in for paid members. I might do other things, but like my growth strategy is the new thing that I put out is going to be so good, and then I'm going to put a subscription, like a subscribe here. And then what I've been doing recently is do we know what content maximizers are? Like, okay, so a content maximizer is uh, either if you want to know more about this, go sign up and down, and you get this free book. That's very relevant to the thing that you're posting. But on Substack, what I do is I give a nice meaty post, and then I say, but if you want the tactics, I'm going to put that in right under the paywall and just sign up, even if it's for a 7-day trial. I'm like, I'll give you all of the stuff for right under here. So those both tend to do well. I also use BookFunnel to like get people into all of like, so like I give all of that stuff away. I will give a year or two. Like I really, because it's a low touch point publication. What I want is to get people to develop the shared language that they will come to our conference or buy our bigger courses or hire me for one-on-one, like whatever that thing is that I'm pushing now. Anything that like furthers that end, I will give away basically either in the pay. And at this point, I'm like, it's $5 a month, or I think it's like $8 now. Like I will discount it down to $1 a year, but like you cannot tell me that 900 posts is not worth like $1 a year or $5, 10. I think the lowest we go now is $8 a year, but whatever it is, it's like it's worth way more than that. The only reason why I'm paying or letting you pay, I'm allowing you to pay less is because like I am investing in our relationship, and that's how I talk to. It's like this costs $80. If you're saying you need, I will invest $79 in you right now if you Bob will come on board and actually do the things. If you're not going to do the things though, like just keep over here until you're ready to do the things and then come back. Because as you mentioned, like you build up this library of stuff that is so relevant. Monica just read her editing for marketability book because she's re-releasing it on Kickstarter. And was like, this is still relevant. I wrote it 15 years ago, but like, it's not a thing that is like we teach regularly. It's not a thing that really fits easily into any of the structures we have in place. But like anyone who comes to our conference should read that editing for marketability book. So we try to think of it as, I remember like Russ Ruffino and a bunch of other like basically everyone that I've ever like followed runs ads at least once a year. That's like $200 for $50,000 of stuff. And it's just like all my old stuff. And every year it gets like bigger and bigger and bigger, but the price never gets thing. And I've been telling people, I'm like, if you do not give me at least $1, then like I have to keep stacking things on to be like, well, is this worth $1 now? Is this worth $1? Until you're eventually like, okay, fine. I admit this is now worth $1. But like once you say my work has value, now we're in a negotiation for just like how valuable it is, like which pieces are valuable. And I like that conversation. I think it's a conversation that's very relevant on Kickstarter as well, where you're like, cool, $1 gets you in the door. But like maybe you want $10. Are you sure you don't want $30?
Well, so I literally, as you were talking, I was like, yep, this is what happens at Kickstarter. One of the reasons that I love Kickstarter is because we are paid our worth as creatives. So I have really expensive tiers and I don't apologize for that. Like I have had readers come to me and say, I'm devastated, I can't afford it. And I'm like, I know, but I have one series in KU. I have that only one because I am predominantly white, but I have one in KU as like lowest access possible, and then I have a digital tier that's really as cheap as I can make it. But then there's tiers all the way up to 500 quid, and people buy them. And and I would say my books are at the higher end of pricing on Kickstarter, but it's also because, I'm not like, that is the point of Kickstarter, is that we can produce the extra quality. I put so much not safe for work art in there and it costs a bloody fortune. So, yes, okay, you're making the money back because it's multiple uses because you've brought the commercial license, but you still had to pay for it, So I think it makes the price of that individual book more expensive because you have the license in that book, if that makes sense. Anyway, so I think yeah, and it's a scary thing to do, is to value yourself and to accept that you are valuing yourself and not going to take, tuppence for your work anymore. I think for too long as indie authors, we've been in a numbers game, trying to just sell as much as humanly possible. And it goes back to Kevin Kelly, doesn't it? You only need 1,000 true fans, and you're set for life, so to speak. What mistakes do you see people making with Substack?
Oh my God, so many. So people, I mean, so these are going to be very common for people that in like just general business sense, but like they go in and they have no idea what they're doing, but they expect, so this is one of my hotter takes, but like all writers are massive narcissists. Like, because we are like not just writing something from our memory and like from like hallucinating wildly and putting it on a page, but then we expect people to read it, love it, buy it in every format, and talk to people about it. Like that is, and like there's nothing wrong with that. But like I feel like there is, specifically on Substack, this group of people that are like at odds with, and frankly, I think this is all authors are at odds with this, but it's very prominent on, it's like, I want to put my stuff out, but I don't want to give money. I don't want to charge money for it because it's just like this hallucinated fever dream. But like, I don't want to give it away for free because like I did stuff for it. And like, there's this like, so there's just like back and forth that like you can see people like turning on paywalls, turning it out, refunding everyone, putting it on again.
What?
And then there's people that say, I'm going to do a paywall when I have like 500 subscribers. And you're like, okay, cool. How long have you been doing this? I've never written online ever. And it's like, all right, like, it's probably going to take you some time to like figure out this thing. Like people always ask me, can I launch a Kickstarter with 0 fans? I'm like, can you launch a book with 0 fans? Yes, you can launch anything anywhere with 0 fans. Like you can put anything basically anywhere. Now, will you be successful at it? No, because your cover is going to be terrible and your book's not going to be very good and no one's going to want it. So like there's a lot of people in that category that then are like, Substack's free. I can just start monetizing my work. And you're like, oh, honey, like, yes,
Yeah.
but like monetization requires people to care about your work more than just like they care about you. Some people will just give you, like, my mom buys every Kickstarter I do, and God love her. I think maybe she's read one book that I've ever put out, and like, bless her. But like, I have one mother who is at that level. My sister doesn't even do that. Like, she buys some of my books when she wants them, and like, friends of mine have bought like one of my 50 books, like whatever. Like, that's all fine. But like, so like, you have to have a funnel and a flywheel going. Like people don't.
I love your flywheel concept, by the way. I can't remember where I heard you talking about that, but when you said it, I was like, oh my God, that's what's happened to me recently. Like that is literally the flywheel is now going.
Right.
Actually, I love it so much. Would you do the honor of telling listeners what the whole concept is about?
Sure. So Monica and I developed this concept based on our author ecosystem, which is a whole different conversation about like a funnel and a flywheel. So a funnel is a top of the funnel. Trying to explain this in a way that like would make sense to somebody who can listen to only these 3 minutes. So a funnel has 3 sections: a top, a middle, and a bottom. And the idea is as you go down the funnel closer to buying, it tapers off, and there's fewer people at the bottom than the top. That's what makes it a funnel, upside down triangle, whatever you want to call it. And the idea is people have to put a bunch of people on the top, and some of them will like you. Some of those people who like you will trust you. Some of those people who trust you will buy from you. Some of those people that buy from you will buy from you again. which is a concept I think generally most people can get their brain around. But in the past year, I started talking and looking into this other concept called a flywheel, which is like better. It's like just better than a funnel, I think, and like it like is easier to not necessarily justify, but to imagine in your head. Because people say, "Oh, an email builder and I put 5,000 people in the top and like no one bought at the bottom, but like I have 5,000 people in my email list." And I'm like, no, no, you have one person. Maybe you have 100 people on your mailing list. Like it's very easy to just get lost in the numbers game. But a flywheel has three sections as well. It attracts, so attracting people to you, engaging with those people, and then delighting them so that they buy. And like most people fall into one of five categories. They are either really good at the top of the funnel, which is they can do these shallow offers that people buy for like $1. Like, and they can do 1 billion offers. And they can go viral. It's great. Or they're really good at the bottom of the funnel, which is like creating an irresistible offer that like people have to buy. Or they're really good at attracting people and like getting people excited, like getting people to read their stuff. Monica's really great at this. And there's another group who's terrible at attracting people, but like the people they do attract are like so engaged, like they love them so much that they just like make so much money on the people that somehow matriculate through their funnel that like awesome they make. And then there's people that are like delight that this is where the special edition Kickstarter stuff comes in, because it's like they want to delight their audience with all of these fun, exciting, new, amazing like books and pins and all of this stuff that just gets them buying for a high like spending just a gobs of money coming to their conference or like doing whatever. But it's like because they're so delighted with the experience. And so generally those are the five ecosystems which I talk about. But like you are probably good at one of those five things. Like, but like you probably suck real bad at like one of those things also. Because like if you're stuck delighting your audience, like you're spending outmoded attention creating a special edition Kickstarter, you were probably not interested in like making shallow offers to get people on your mailing list. Because like who cares about that thing? I'm going to make the greatest, biggest Kickstarter ever, the best Kickstarter book, and everyone who's in my audience will love it. And then like I don't need any of the other stuff. Whereas if you like are making so many small offers that you're like able to make money making the perfect book and having virality, like why do you need a really big, nice offer? You can just like find new people the next time or like modify stuff. But it's really when you take this idea of a flywheel, that a career makes sense, because the difference between a flywheel and what we all do, which is that like funnel pump, is a pump works great at the beginning because you push it and the same amount of literally every time you push a pump, the same amount of output comes out. If you put $5 in Facebook ads, $7 comes out every time. And like that's awesome, but like you don't want to pump 1 billion times. If you pump that 1 billion times, the exact same output will happen. And like, so you have all of these people burning out because they've been pumping for 10 years. And sure, they get the decent output, but it's like exhausting to pump all day. The flywheel idea, which is now, I realize, probably what you wanted me to discuss, this part of the flywheel is that a flywheel is impossible to start at the beginning. So the beginning of your career, you like can't get any momentum. It feels like you're struggling and struggling and struggling to get no gain. An email list very much feels like this. You're like, what years you're spending talking to people on your email list. You're like, you're making no money. And then like you push it far enough that it rotates. And the next time you go around, that momentum carries you forward faster, a little bit faster. And then you keep doing it. And like, it's a lot easier to get that second 1,000 people than that first 1,000. It's a lot easier to make that $10,000 than that $9,000. And like over time, someone else is over here pumping and they're making fun of you for starting your email list or doing all that thing. You're like, haha, I'm already at $2,000 a month. And maybe like it took you 4 years to get to $2,000 a month. But then it's like, whoa, now I'm at 4,000. Oh, now I'm at like 6,000. And it's like, eventually it becomes harder to stop the flywheel than it is to just like keep going, which is something that I talk about all the time, which is like, people ask me, how do you keep going? I'm like, how could I stop now? Like, I'm on like, I get invited to guest on all of these podcasts. Like people buy all the books that I put out. Like we have this community that like people want to tell people about. And like we have word of mouth that people are coming into our flywheel organically. Like why would you ever stop that at that point? But like it's people that are generally looking at the pump and being like, I'm so tired after 10 years of pumping. And like, I have not been pumping for 10 years. I flywheeled for like 3 years. And since then, it's been increasingly easier to do this work.
Yeah. Oh, and that's why I love it, because I really do feel like that is what happens to, if people can just hold on long enough, that is what happens in this industry. I can't believe we're almost at the end already. I really could talk to you for ages. It's for the 60-minute time limit. But before I ask you the ultimate podcast question, any final tips for Substack? Anything that you maybe you wish you'd known, or a top tip for somebody who's starting out?
Yes, I guess my biggest tip is fuck around and find out what works for you. Like that is the wonder of the time we live in is that anyone can build a business. Like I really believe that like anyone can build a successful business. But like no one can tell you how to build your business, because like the things that work for you is a very different stack than what works for me. Lee, who's my co-host, is like a 7-figure fiction author. My books were not even on Amazon until like a month ago when I like started, maybe like 6 months ago. But really, like most of my books were not on Amazon until like the past month. And I'm like, oh, look, I actually made some money on Draft to Digital this month. And so like that is very, if I was like, I make all of my money direct, people would be like, well, like, why are you a millionth? Like, why do you rank like a million as an author? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't even care about Amazon. Like, I don't even think about Amazon ever, except when like they beef a launch. They like do something wrong, and which happens way too much. I cannot believe after 15 years, Sasha, it's still so bad. Like, why it's still so bad on Amazon, launching a book on Amazon. It's still so bad.
Yeah, one of my goals for next year is, because so my Shopify is second to Amazon, but I want Shopify to overtake Amazon. That is like my sole goal, is to make my Shopify bigger than Amazon, which is tough because I do very well on Amazon. So I've got a tall order, but I really want my direct to be the biggest. So yeah, that is my goal for next year. Well, this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Oh my God. Like my whole career has just been like a big FU to publishing. Like I can't believe that like I have a career for how many times that I've just like torched my own career. So like, okay, I guess the first time I can think about this is I got a publishing deal in 2011. And the comic book was supposed to come out in like February, March, April, and May of like a year, I think 2012. And like it came out in like February, May, September, and like December. It was like not even they solicited it when it was going to be out, and it wasn't out at that time. And then they turned around and were like, your book didn't do very well. And I'm like, you literally didn't even launch it the days that you said you were going to launch it. And they're like, well, that's a you problem, not a me problem. And they were like, if you want to do the hardcover, the paperback trade, because it was books 1, 2, 3, issues 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's like you're gonna have to front it, and like we'll run a Kickstarter for it, and like, but you'll then keep the money from the Kickstarter. And they're like, yeah, basically, but we'll put it out there. And I'm like, to who? Who wants so. I then had another similar bad experience with the publisher who I just learned put the book on Ingram Spark, and I was like I can publish things this badly. I can't I don't know if I can do this well, but like I can at least fail to deliver books on delivery dates, run Kickstarters, and like put my book on Ingram Spark. Like I can do that and sell no copies, which is what was happening then. So I took back all my rights. I bought back and took back all my rights. And I was like, I'm just going to do it because like I'll probably learn by doing better than this terrible experience. And to the people's credit, like they did not try to hold up my rights or any of that stuff. So like I appreciate that they just like gave back the rights easily. But yeah, I mean, I'm very much like I can do this as poorly as you. I can do anything almost as poorly as like the worst person who's getting paid for it. I don't know. I can't probably do it as well as the best person, but like I can probably then take what I learned from doing it terribly and like do it slightly less terribly over time. Just kind of the whole experience of my life is like, what if every day you got like 0.1% less terrible? And eventually you'd be pretty not terrible after like 15 years of doing this.
Oh my God. I love how you're describing this. You crack me up. Oh, this has been an absolute delight. I'm so glad I finally got to talk to you. Would you like to tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your books? Now, your conference is invite only, is that right?
No, the Writer MBA conference you can do. You can get to anyone is invited to. If you go to Writer MBA, we have a conference in March. We have two components. The Writer MBA conference is after our Future Publishing Mastermind, which is for 5, 6, and 7 figure authors and people who've established and been doing this a while to sort of be like a hive brain and exchange information. It's kind of like an unconference, and like you can apply to that. In fact, here's what I will say. Please apply, because 30% of people that apply are shocked that we approve them. And here's the thing. They are all people who've been doing this for like 5 or 10 years, many of whom I learned from. And like many of them are 6-figure authors. And they're like, I didn't think I'd be invited to this thing. I'm like, who qualifies then if you don't qualify? So you probably qualify. You should go to writermba.com and fill out an application or come join us. It's really fun. And it's built around connection more than information, although there's a lot of both. My Substack is at theauthorstack.com. I do also have a fiction Substack, which we didn't talk about, but that's at wannabepress.com. And that's great because like 10 to 20 times a month, someone just subscribes to it. And then I get them in my ConvertKit account, and like they go through all of my automations, and I don't do anything for it, but like they have expressed their interest in fiction, and that's awesome. So yeah, theauthorstack.com, writermba.com, and I look forward to seeing you on the internet.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a giant thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You are listening to Russell Nohelty, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week will be Christmas, so join me as I chat to Petra all about the millions of lessons we have learned from running successful Kickstarters. And we also have some festive cheer at the beginning. And yes, I know, I'm normally a Scrooge. I pulled out my best happy Santa face just for you guys. Happy Christmas.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.